In today's episode,
To me, therapy is something that is now in the last few years, more people are becoming open to it. But there's still such a huge resistance to that word. And I also feel similar to the word coach. And not necessarily, if you say a soccer coach, a football coach, a sports coach, you'll be like, okay, cool, they're coaching a team. That makes so much sense. When you say the term career, executive, business, life coach, which is a whole different sphere, I feel like that the term itself, there's a lot of resistance to from a lot of people that would probably gain a lot from it. And I'll be honest, I've probably felt that as well. And in my old job, I ended up being paired with what was called an executive coach. But essentially, he ended up being a hybrid of a great sounding board, someone who's trained in understanding and seeing blind spots that I wasn't going to see, that my friends weren't going to see, my parents weren't going to see. And being able to kind of guide me in a way that wasn't necessarily saying my whole life's terrible. My life was pretty good, right? It was just saying that what are the things you're trying to improve, because everyone's always trying to improve something, and are there things that we can do to make that a lot more effective and efficient. So I found it incredible transformational experience working with him. I only had 6 sessions, and he was a great guy. So the only reason I bring that up is just because I think the word coaching and therapy, to me, there's kind of like a similarity in that there's a resistance, but it's so valuable to so many people. And I find, and again, tell me if I'm wrong here, but to me, therapy seems more about dealing with the past in many ways.
Sure.
Maybe there's some therapists that are helping you figure stuff out going forward too, but really it seems like there's all this unconscious bias, these subliminal things that we haven't thought about for so long that are just, like the time you fell over as a 9-year-old and like someone took the ball away from you at school and you didn't deal with it, and now that's manifesting itself. And that sounds so cliche, but genuinely a lot of us are living with those crutches. But coaching, or just if we've used the term self-development, growth, working with someone to grow yourself, like that to me is really seems more as about today and going forward. Would you say that's an accurate statement?
I think I probably couldn't articulate it better than you did. I mean, I really think that coaching is extremely forward-looking and also outcome-driven. And so, I can just speak to how I work and certainly how I work with my coach. But at the end of every session, it's very clear of what I want to do in order to tackle whatever it is that's in my way or where I want to go. And it's very, very clear on how that coach is going to hold me accountable.
So you still have a coach now, right?
I do.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, although Andrew, who's amazing, his name's Andrew Taggart. You should link to him in the show notes. He wouldn't call himself a coach. He's actually a philosopher. He's a PhD in philosophy.
Oh, he literally is.
He's and so he wouldn't even call our time together coaching sessions. He calls them philosophical conversations.
Love that. I
actually have one on Wednesday, and I'm really looking forward to it. But at the end of the day, it's using logic and really digging 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 layers deep. And I find that with him, I do amazing work. But again, it's very outcome driven.
Yeah. And that's awesome, man. So and I would just add to that to say there's a lot more conversations around this topic. And there's a book that just came out recently, Eric Schmidt, the ex-CEO, and I guess he's still the chairman of Google.
The $1 trillion coach.
Have you read that yet?
I have.
Okay, how is it?
I liked it. I think I may have had unrealistic expectations, thinking that it was going to be a life-changing book. But, at the end of the day, Bill Campbell was one of the greatest coaches that ever lived and really served some of the top tech organizations in history, Apple, Google.
Yeah, and I heard that just for context for people, Eric Schmidt, obviously really well-established guy, and I heard him on, I think, the Tim Ferriss podcast. He gave a talk about this, and I was like, wow, like, I was at Google for 7.5 years. I've seen Eric Schmidt was one of those people that, like, in the beginning, I was like, I wasn't even sure about him. And then the more I saw him, I was like, this guy's on top of his game. Like, you'd see him speak in front of a crowd, and he was like a mixture between a politician, but like the good parts of a politician that I actually like, and the clear thinking of a philosopher and kind of like the technological brains of a real technologist. And when I heard that, I was like, wow, this is really interesting. And I just found that, again, the word coach, like a lot of people just still feel resistant towards. But when you start thinking of, people like him and, people like yourself who, and when you go to the gym or you go to any sort of organized sport, you're going to have to get help from people that they're not necessarily better than you at the sport. Right, like LeBron James' coach is not better than him at basketball, but he's a better coach than he is.
I think the analogy that Eric Schmidt used was when don't quote me on the story, but I think John Doerr, the famous VC, encouraged Eric to meet with Bill Campbell about being his coach, and I think initially Eric was reluctant, and I think the analogy that Eric ultimately used was, Andre, at the time, I think Andre Agassi was one of the top tennis players in the world. And it's like, Andre Agassi needs a coach. Yeah. And so to me, I don't view having a coach as a weakness. I actually view it as an investment in myself, and that I'm able to work with someone who's completely neutral, that shows up with no judgment whatsoever, and helps me become the best version of myself.